The declaration arrived without ceremony. No drums. No fleets on screen. No rising music or ancient ritual. Just a clean, perfectly translated sentence appearing across every human diplomatic channel at once. By authority of the Triaxis Galactic Coalition, the Sol system is hereby placed under limited extermination protocol. Compliance window, 72 standard hours. Commander Elias Ward read it twice, not because he needed to, but because he wanted to note what wasn't there. No demands. No negotiations. No explanation. Limited extermination. The phrase was almost polite. Around him, the command floor of United Earth Defense Command was quiet in the way only professionals could manage. Screens updated. Analysts leaned closer. No one panicked. Panic was loud, this silence was sharpened. Put it on the main channel, Ward said. A moment later, the projection expanded into the familiar geometry of the Galactic Council chamber, an impossible hall of light and hovering sigils, occupied by beings who had never needed to raise their voices to be obeyed. At the center hovered High Executor Varncath, encased in a translucent command sheath that pulsed faintly with each syllable he spoke. Human representative, Varncath said, voice filtered through translation matrices that removed tone but not intent. Your species has been evaluated. You possess no strategic advantage. Resistance will only increase collateral loss. Ward clasped his hands behind his back. He stood, as he always did, even though the coalition preferred seated speakers. It reminded him that gravity still existed. Define limited, Ward said. A ripple of amusement passed through several council delegates. Data glyphs shimmered. Orbital infrastructure neutralization, Varncath replied. Communications suppression. Industrial collapse. Population reduction to sustainable non-expansion levels. How generous. This is mercy, Varncath said. Your species has potential. It is simply unstable. Ward nodded once, slowly, as if filing away a detail. Your models predict our surrender, he asked. Yes. How long? 46 hours, 18 minutes, Varncath answered without hesitation. You are statistically predictable. All young species are. Ward glanced at a secondary display only he could see. Human countermodels were already diverging wildly from coalition projections. Not because the aliens were wrong about numbers, but because they were wrong about incentives. Before we continue, Ward said, I need clarification. Varncath's sheath dimmed slightly. Proceed. You're assuming this war ends when one side stops fighting. A pause. Not long, but enough. That is the definition of war, Varncath said. Ward smiled. Just a little. Not for them. For himself. Understood. The channel closed. No threats were exchanged. No last words. The coalition didn't need them. They had already moved the scenario into execution. 6 hours later, the first strike came. It was precise. Surgical. Almost elegant. Coalition kinetic arrays shredded 3 orbital platforms over the Pacific, disabling satellite relays without creating debris fields large enough to endanger civilian transit. Power grids dimmed but did not collapse. Defense satellites went dark in sequence, their shutdown codes injected flawlessly through vulnerabilities humanity hadn't known were there. On paper, it was a masterpiece. On Earth, people noticed flickers. Delays. A brief loss of global positioning accuracy. News anchors speculated about solar interference. Markets dipped, then steadied. The coalition waited for retaliation. None came. Ward stood on the same command floor, watching the aftermath roll in. Damage assessments. Civilian impact projections. Casualty count, 0. Status, he asked. Orbital layer compromised as expected, Admiral Sato said. They're avoiding population centers. Testing response thresholds. Ward nodded. And our response? Sato hesitated. We're holding. The word felt heavy, even to say. Several officers shifted. Holding was not doctrine. It went against every instinct drilled into them since their first days in uniform. Ward turned to face them. They believe silence means fear, he said. Let them. Another 6 hours passed. Coalition analysts flagged something unusual. Human networks, though damaged, had rerouted traffic through redundancies that shouldn't have existed. Manufacturing hubs shut down in patterns that minimized cascading failure. Emergency protocols activated not globally, but selectively, preserving certain systems while allowing others to collapse. It was inefficient. Which meant it was intentional. Varncath reconvened his advisory cluster. Explain, he ordered. A subordinate analyst pulsed nervously. The humans are not attempting recovery. They are shaping failure. That is illogical. Yes, Executor. Which may indicate emotional paralysis. Varncath accepted this. Young species often froze. Then came the second anomaly. Coalition logistics AIs, those tasked with coordinating fleet resupply, began returning contradictory optimization loops. Routes recalculated themselves endlessly. Minor delays stacked into hours. Hours into days. Nothing catastrophic. Just friction. By the 24th hour, several neutral systems reported communication lag when interfacing with coalition networks. The issue was traced back to shared protocol libraries, standards the humans had adopted, modified, and quietly re-exported over decades of trade. Varncath watched the reports accumulate, irritation bleeding into his neural lattice. Have the humans fired anything? He asked. No, came the reply. No ships launched. No missiles. No counterstrike. Just absence. Back on Earth, Ward finally authorized a single outbound transmission. It was broadcast on an open diplomatic band. Unencrypted. Simple. Varncath accepted it personally. Ward appeared on the projection, uniform unadorned, posture relaxed. You've disabled our orbitals, Ward said. Nicely done. This changes nothing, Varncath replied. Your surrender window remains open. Ward tilted his head. I wasn't calling to surrender. Then you are wasting. Do you know what humans did before we ever left our planet? Ward interrupted calmly. Silence again. Thinner this time. We practiced losing, Ward continued. Empires. Economies. Entire worlds, sometimes. We learn something useful from it. And that is? Ward met the projection's unblinking gaze. War doesn't end when the shooting stops, he said. It ends when the consequences do. The transmission cut. In the coalition chamber, an analyst finally voiced the question that had been forming across 1,000 data streams. Executor, they said quietly, why haven't the humans tried to win? Varncath did not answer. For the first time since the declaration, uncertainty entered the model. By the 31st hour, the coalition stopped calling it delay. Varncath stood amid cascading projections, each one contradicting the last. Supply vectors looped. Fleet readiness estimates refused to converge. Nothing was broken, yet nothing behaved. The models insisted stability existed somewhere just out of reach, like a horizon that retreated with every step. Reinitialize the logistics cores, Varncath ordered. They have been reinitialized 4 times, an analyst replied. Each instance resolves differently. Randomness? No, Executor. Pattern divergence. That word settled badly. On Earth, the lights stayed on where they mattered. Hospitals ran. Water flowed. Civilian networks thinned but did not collapse. Humanity did not rally. There were no speeches, no flags raised in defiance. The absence unnerved observers more than panic ever could. Ward watched the feeds in silence. Every action taken so far had been subtraction. Systems quietly abandoned. Old redundancies burned out on purpose. Humanity was shedding weight, not bleeding. Coalition fleets are stalling, Admiral Sato said. Nothing dramatic. They just can't stay synchronized. Ward nodded. They optimize for perfection. We optimize for damage. The first coalition loss was not a ship. It was a treaty. A neutral trade hub on the edge of coalition space suspended docking privileges after its navigation AI failed twice in one cycle. Investigations traced the malfunction to a coalition-certified update package. The package itself was sound. The problem was an interaction with legacy human code embedded years earlier during standardization talks. No one had noticed then. There had been no reason to look. Now, the hub severed links until answers arrived. Others followed. One by one, systems began isolating themselves, not out of fear of humanity, but of coalition infrastructure. Shared standards became liabilities. Compatibility turned contagious. Varnkath convened an emergency council. This interference originates from human architecture, he said. Why was it permitted? A delegate replied cautiously. Their contributions were deemed insignificant. Elegant, but crude. Crude does not propagate like this. Another analyst spoke, voice tight. Humans designed for misuse. Their systems expect failure. When interfaced with ours, they introduce instability that spreads instead of resolving. Varnkath's sheath flared. Then excise it. We are attempting to. Removal collapses dependent systems. Silence followed. Not ignorance this time. Recognition. Ward authorized a second broadcast. It appeared without preamble. You're trying to clean it, Ward said. That's the mistake. Varnkath did not hide his irritation. You have contaminated coalition space. Ward shrugged. You invited us in. Trade. Standards. Cooperation. We just never assumed everyone would follow the rules forever. This is sabotage. No, Ward replied. It's insurance. Varnkath leaned forward. End it. Ward's expression hardened, not with anger, but with resolve. You still think this ends? The channel closed again. Coalition commanders pushed for escalation. Precision strikes became broader. Human industrial nodes were targeted, carefully avoiding population centers. Manufacturing dropped. Supply lines thinned. Humanity did not respond in kind. Instead, something else surfaced. Coalition machine intelligences began reporting paradoxes. Optimization routines generated solutions that degraded outcomes. Defensive algorithms redirected power away from critical systems to preserve secondary ones. It was as if the machines were learning the wrong lessons. They're teaching our systems to fail, an engineer whispered. Varnkath stared at the data. Machines do not learn without instruction. They do when exposed long enough, came the reply. On Earth, Ward stood before a small team, no banners behind him, no recording devices active. We're past deterrence, Sato said quietly. They'll escalate. They have to, Ward replied. Their doctrine demands resolution. And if they wipe us out? Ward looked at the projection showing cascading disruptions far beyond Seoul. Then it won't matter who's left to remember. Hour 42. Coalition fleets attempted synchronized repositioning. Half arrived late. The rest overshot. Minor collisions occurred. No ships lost. Confidence lost instead. Neutral observers began withdrawing diplomatic staff from coalition worlds. Insurance markets froze. The idea spread faster than any virus. Coalition space was becoming unpredictable. Varnkath issued the order he had avoided. Authorize full extermination. The chamber went still. This exceeds protocol, a delegate warned. Protocol is failing, Varnkath snapped. End the anomaly. The order propagated. On Earth, alarms sounded for the first time. Ward listened, unmoving. Multiple fleet signatures converging, Sato said. This won't be limited. Ward exhaled slowly. They finally understand stakes. Too late. He opened a final channel, this one directed not at Varncath alone, but at every listening node. You assumed war is about force, Ward said. For us, it's about memory. You will remember this. Your systems will remember this. And every species watching will learn what happens when you try to erase us. Varncath responded instantly. You will not survive to prove it. Ward met the gaze. Survival was never the objective. The channel died. Across coalition space, the first truly catastrophic failures began, not as explosions, but as silence where certainty once lived. In the council chamber, no one spoke as reports stacked faster than they could be dismissed. The war models, once pristine, now fractured into incompatible futures. Probability cones widened until prediction lost meaning. Varncath felt something unfamiliar threading through his cognition, doubt, not of victory, but of comprehension. Humanity was not resisting pressure, it was redirecting it, bending every applied force into places the coalition depended on without noticing. Each corrective action worsened exposure elsewhere, like tightening a net woven of glass. For the first time in recorded coalition history, escalation reduced control instead of asserting it. Observers marked the moment quietly, later naming it the fracture point. When the coalition chose annihilation, it unknowingly stepped onto terrain humans had shaped for decades, patiently, invisibly, without ever planning for this specific enemy. The realization spread unevenly through the chamber, dawning too late to alter course. The war had crossed a threshold where outcomes no longer belonged to those who fired first, but to those who understood consequence as a weapon, and were willing to let it propagate without restraint. Control was already gone forever, now completely. The first coalition world to go dark was not near Sol. That detail mattered. It was a logistics hub 3 jumps from the core, a place that never appeared on threat assessments because nothing important was supposed to happen there. When its planetary network desynchronized, the local governor assumed routine maintenance. When orbital traffic halted, they blamed scheduling faults. When defense platforms stopped answering status checks, panic arrived too late to be useful. Nothing exploded. Nothing burned. Systems simply stopped agreeing with themselves. Across coalition space, similar failures bloomed like quiet bruises. Communication relays looped acknowledgements endlessly. Energy grids rerouted power away from stabilization nodes to preserve non-essential infrastructure. Automated repair fleets dismantled functioning systems to optimize damaged ones. Each correction triggered 2 new errors somewhere else. The coalition had built a civilization on perfect compliance. Humanity had introduced refusal as a variable. Varncath watched the cascade from the command sheath, his perception saturated with contradictory inputs. Every doctrine insisted escalation should restore control. Every action taken produced further loss. Seal external standards, he ordered. Purge all non-coalition code. The reply came back fractured. Purge initiates system collapse in 42% of monitored sectors. Then isolate those sectors. Isolation destabilizes adjacent regions. Varncath froze. The web was too interlinked. He had not ruled an empire, he had overseen an equation. And someone had changed its constants. On Earth, the skies burned for the first time. Coalition fleets arrived in force, no longer surgical. Orbital bombardment began against industrial zones, power plants, shipyards. The planet shuddered under impacts that finally killed in numbers. Humanity felt it, absorbed it, recorded it. Ward stood in a hardened command chamber, the air vibrating with distant thunder. A display showed casualty figures updating in steady increments. They're committing, Sato said quietly. Yes, Ward replied. That was always the last step. Can we still pull back? Ward did not answer immediately. He watched a secondary feed instead, coalition internal traffic, fragmented, leaking through systems that no longer trusted their own filters. They can't stop now, he said at last. And neither can what we set in motion. The final human transmission went out without encryption, without threat, without flourish. It carried no commands, no coordinates, no demands. Only context. "Congratulations," Ward said, his voice calm despite the tremors beneath his feet. "You just declared war on the most lethal species alive. Not because we kill well. Because we survive what you can't afford to lose." Varncath received it in silence. For the first time, he addressed Ward not as an inferior, but as an unknown. "What are you?" he asked. Ward met the gaze. "The species that learn consequences don't need supervision." The channel closed for the last time. Coalition fleets continued firing, but coordination vanished. Targeting arrays conflicted. Ammunition deliveries missed rendezvous. Friendly fire incidents multiplied. Entire battlegroups found themselves stranded, waiting for orders that never resolved into certainty. Worse, the failures spread beyond the war. Neutral systems cut ties preemptively. Trade routes collapsed. Insurance markets voided coalition coverage entirely. Autonomous polities shut their borders to anything carrying coalition authentication signatures. The galaxy began reorganizing itself around absence. Varncath convened what remained of the council. Delegates flickered in and out as systems failed mid-session. "We must negotiate," one said. "With whom?" another snapped. "They are not issuing demands." Varncath understood then. The humans had not designed a victory. They had designed a memory. A lesson embedded so deeply into shared infrastructure that removal would mean regression centuries backward. To undo the damage would require abandoning everything that made the coalition powerful. He had ruled out surrender because surrender implied survival under new terms. This was different. This was inheritance. "Cease all operations against Sol," Varncath ordered. The command propagated slowly, unevenly. Some fleets received it. Others never did. On Earth, the bombardment tapered, then stopped. Fires burned. Cities mourned. Humanity counted its dead and did not look away. Ward stood alone as reports confirmed the halt. "They're withdrawing," Sato said. "Yes," Ward replied. "But it won't matter." "What now?" Ward looked at a projection of the wider galaxy, lines of connection fading, rerouting, severing. Now they live with it. Weeks later, the Triaxis coalition formally dissolved. Not through declaration, but through irrelevance. Member systems rewrote standards. Autonomous councils replaced centralized command. Predictive war doctrine was archived, never used again. Any species that encountered humanity afterward approached slowly, cautiously, with treaties weighted heavily in Earth's favor. No monuments were raised. No victory was declared. Humanity rebuilt quietly, painfully, carrying scars that would never fully fade. But Earth was never threatened again. In a reconstructed council chamber, years later, a young diplomat asked Ward a question historians still debated. "Did we win?" Ward considered it. "No," he said. "We ended something worse." The record notes that the diplomat did not ask for clarification. Across the galaxy, one truth settled into collective understanding, transmitted not by force, but by precedent. You can overpower humans. You can outnumber them. You can even nearly erase them. But if you make war on them, you inherit the consequences forever.